It is Monday, July 11th. I'm Brian Jackson from the ABC 27 Newsroom. Starting next week, teachers who shop at Target can save up to 15% on their back-to-school shopping. This includes school supplies, decorative classroom items, PPE, and much more. Target's Teacher Prep event runs from July the 17th through September 10th. All K through 12 homeschool teachers, daycare centers, university or college professors, and teachers at vocational, trade, and technical schools are all eligible. All you have to do is head to Target's website to sign up with valid identification. Governor Ron Desantis unveiled a plan last week to lower prescription drug costs for Floridians. It involves making prescription benefit managers more accountable for the prices that patients get charged for medication. He says that the FDA has been dragging their feet about this, though another plan to let state imports drugs from Canada. The state did pass a law to make that possible, but it is still waiting for federal approval. And there is some relief coming at the pump. The average price of gas is down 19 cents over the past 2 weeks. AAA reports the national average for a gallon of regular is at $4.68. That is roughly 30 cents lower than this time a month ago. Analysts also predict the prices could drop between 10 to 20 cents more.
A lot of cloud cover throughout our Monday today. Not much sunshine, but we'll see scattered rain and storms popping up across the area. The really big concern with some of these storms is that can dump a lot of rain on some of our communities. So that's something we'll be monitoring as we go throughout the day. Temperatures topping out in the mid to upper 80s. It's very muggy and humid though. Showers and storms should be wrapping up throughout the mid-evening hours, so we should trend mostly dry overnight. Clouds will stick around. Temperatures staying muggy in the mid-70s. Not a lot of change throughout the 7-day forecast either. Daily storm chances. Temperatures in the upper 80s to lower 90s. 70% chance Tuesday, much of the same throughout the late week too, so make sure you have your rain gear handy.
We're packing boxes so that we can give them to people who really need them.
Piper Fessler and Scout Troop 118G spending their morning packing boxes for Good Shepherd Catholic Church's annual Stuff the Truck food drive.
And they were excited about doing it to help people who are in need.
With donations too big to count, those at the Good Shepherd have continued to fill up a 15-foot moving van full of food and other household essentials for Good News Outreach in Tallahassee.
There are a lot of people out there who are in need of food that they can't get for themselves, and this is a great way to help them get the things that they need.
Good News Outreach will use those donations at their food pantry, helping families facing food insecurity. That issue a problem for 68,000 people in Leon County, with 1 in 3 kids, according to Feeding America, not knowing where their next meal will come from. Communities facing the largest impact of food insecurity, according to Leon County. The FAMU area with 66% of their neighborhood being food insecure. The Bond community at 60%, Outer Griffin Heights at 54%, and Fritchtown at 50%. Just last month, Leon County commissioners passed measures during their budget workshop to help organizations fight food insecurity on the community level, including giving $60,000 to Second Harvest to purchase a truck for their mobile food pantry program. Throughout the pandemic, Leon County used $5 million working with Second Harvest to give out over 4 million meals to families. With boots on the ground with organizations like Good News Outreach to feed his community, Peter Cowdery uses some of his free time to deliver food to those in need. He says communities across Tallahassee really do need the help.
They're just everywhere you look, on street corners and busy places and not so busy places. You're seeing more hunger than I can ever recall, and the numbers are going up. Sadly, the numbers are going up.
Cowdery adds, however, he's encouraged by those stepping up and would like to see even more help.
People must step up. Individuals and groups, any church group.
In Tallahassee, Micah Cho, ABC 27.
If you're playing political Scrabble, you've had no shortage of words to choose from lately. Democrats came into power promising big climate changes, improved pricing for prescription drugs, and for things like childcare. Wait, that's 2 words. Up until this point, though, those words have been just that, words. While infrastructure passed, progressives, for the most part, have been unable to get through many of their big ideas. Remember Build Back Better, the massive policy bill that Democrats wanted to pass last year? That failed because Democrats in the Senate weren't unanimously in support of the idea. Senator Joe Manchin specifically had concerns about too much spending and inflation. But it appears as though Democratic leadership has convinced Senator Manchin to support something. And as a result, they're going to try, again, to pass major policy changes before the midterms, perhaps by the end of this month. Which is why you will hear more about a word known as reconciliation in the coming days. You see, under normal Senate rules, 60 votes are needed to defeat the filibuster. But the reconciliation process allows for some financial bills to pass with a simple majority vote. Democrats have that if they all stick together in the Senate because the vice president breaks any ties. Very few details on the proposed legislation have been released, but there is early agreement among Democrats to close tax loopholes for those making more than $400,000 by forcing new taxes on incomes from certain pass-through businesses. That change would make Medicare solvent until at least 2031. The bill also includes limited prescription drug reform. It may limit how much a drug's price can be increased from year to year. It could also result in lower prices for seniors by allowing Medicare to negotiate with drug companies. We are told the legislation could include other ideas too, like electric car tax credits, just as long as every Democrat in the Senate supports it. New child tax credits or major changes to child care are not expected. But President Biden and congressional leaders are facing one major hurdle, and that's the election is quickly approaching. The ticking clock means Democrats won't have much time to negotiate and pass this. Not to mention, Democrats are also trying this month to pass a bipartisan bill meant to boost computer chip manufacturing in the United States. All of this means politics will be BUSY busy the next few weeks. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
Today, mourners are paying their respects to former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He was assassinated during a speech on Friday. Taiwan's president paid tribute and thanked Abe for his contributions to the friendship between Taiwan and Japan. In Tokyo, the public had a chance to visit a small memorial space, and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken led a moment of silence for Abe in Tokyo this morning. A private wake is being held in Tokyo today, followed by a funeral service tomorrow. A Ukrainian official calls missile strikes in eastern Ukraine, quote, absolute terrorism. Weekend strikes killed at least 15 people. The attacks continued today in a residential area of Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second largest city. Missiles have destroyed a school and residential buildings. Russia is expected to try and advance its forces in Kharkiv, not just because of its size, but also because it's one of the largest cities near the Russian border. Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin made it easier for all Ukrainians to become Russian citizens. Putin signed a decree extending a simplified citizenship process to everyone in Ukraine. Until recently, only residents of eastern Ukraine were eligible. The decree is Putin's latest move to expand Moscow's influence in the war-torn country. For the first time in the U.S., a pharmaceutical company is asking for approval to sell birth control pills over the counter. Today, French drug maker HRA Pharma submitted its application to the Food and Drug Administration. The company argues women can safely screen themselves for risk factors and use the pill effectively. The application will add fire to the political battle over women's reproductive health. HRA Pharma claims the timing was unrelated to the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Decreasing oil prices have lowered prices at the pump. According to AAA, today's national average for a price of regular gas is $4.68. That's about 30 cents lower compared to a month ago. Americans are still paying much more for gas compared to 1 year ago, like real estate agent Marisol Horner, who spends about $500 per month on gas.
So it definitely means less trips, less money for my baby, less money for, daycare and things like that.
Californians are still seeing the highest gas prices at more than $6 a gallon. The least expensive gas can be found in South Carolina.
If you're playing political Scrabble, you've had no shortage of words to choose from lately. Democrats came into power promising big climate changes, improved pricing for prescription drugs, and for things like childcare. Wait, that's 2 words. Up until this point, though, those words have been just that, words. While infrastructure passed, progressives, for the most part, have been unable to get through many of their big ideas. Remember Build Back Better, the massive policy bill that Democrats wanted to pass last year? That failed because Democrats in the Senate weren't unanimously in support of the idea. Senator Joe Manchin specifically had concerns about too much spending and inflation. But it appears as though Democratic leadership has convinced Senator Manchin to support something. And as a result, they're going to try again to pass major policy changes before the midterms, perhaps by the end of this month. Which is why you will hear more about a word known as reconciliation in the coming days. You see, under normal Senate rules, 60 votes are needed to defeat the filibuster. But the reconciliation process allows for some financial bills to pass with a simple majority vote. Democrats have that if they all stick together in the Senate because the vice president breaks any ties. Very few details on the proposed legislation have been released, but there is early agreement among Democrats to close tax loopholes for those making more than $400,000 by forcing new taxes on incomes from certain pass-through businesses. That change would make Medicare solvent until at least 2031. The bill also includes limited prescription drug reform. It may limit how much a drug's price can be increased from year to year. It could also result in lower prices for seniors by allowing Medicare to negotiate with drug companies. We are told the legislation could include other ideas too, like electric car tax credits, just as long as every Democrat in the Senate supports it. New child tax credits or major changes to child care are not expected. But President Biden and congressional leaders are facing one major hurdle, and that's the election is quickly approaching. The ticking clock means Democrats won't have much time to negotiate and pass this. Not to mention, Democrats are also trying this month to pass a bipartisan bill meant to boost computer chip manufacturing in the United States. All of this means politics will be BUSY busy the next few weeks. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
We're driving through Paradise, California to see what it looks like almost 4 years after a fire destroyed this town. You might be surprised to know that hundreds of people who once lived here, who lost everything in that 2018 fire, are still looking for a place to live.
Had you ever been to Paradise?
No.
Everybody was just so wonderful. I've lived there 33, 34 years.
As I sat with Tammy Huerta, she asked if she could read me something she wrote.
Okay, it'll take a minute.
Please.
Okay. On the morning of November 8, 2018, I thought that if the fire started coming our way, I would grab my dogs and run to Clark Road.
The story of how she escaped the campfire.
And I told God, I don't want to die like this. And I don't want this to be my last day on earth.
Not only does she want you to know how she survived, but how she and many others who were displaced nearly 4 years ago are still struggling today.
People that are still without need help.
Tammy is now in Chico, about 20 minutes from Paradise. The fire took almost everything she owned.
For 6 months, I couldn't see. I didn't want to look at Paradise.
She says as a house cleaner, she can't afford to buy or rent her own place. The median price for a home here is $484,000. The average one-bedroom apartment rents for more than $1,500 a month.
So this is where some people are allowed to stay. The people who are still needing help now are the ones that didn't have the insurance. They were renters typically. If they were homeowners, they were underinsured or didn't have insurance to rebuild.
Jessica Gianola is helping Tammy through the nonprofit Chico Housing Action Team, or CHAT. She says she has more than 300 applications from campfire survivors who can't find a permanent place to live.
We need rent lower, so that we can get into a place and get back on our feet again, working and bringing in more income.
The impact of natural disasters on housing isn't just a problem here. According to CoreLogic, a top data company, last year, 1 in 10 homes across the country was impacted by a natural disaster. And displacement isn't an easy problem to fix. Just take North Carolina, which in May announced $16 million in grants will go to help those still feeling the impact of 2018's Hurricane Florence and 2016's Hurricane Matthew.
Over here is is where a lot of people were camping.
Jessica says affordable housing was an issue in Chico before 2018, but it's different today. She drove us to where she's found people living in tents who, before the fire, were never on the path to homelessness.
These people's lives and their professions, the things they've done, the people they've helped, and here they're left with nothing.
Tammy is currently sharing a home Chat owns with other campfire survivors. What's your path forward? Like, what are you hoping to do now?
I want to get back into paradise. That's my home, that's my heart.
But with the home price in the town almost $70,000 more today than it was before the fire, it may be too expensive for her to ever go home. In Chico, California, I'm Chris Stewart reporting.
The U.S. economy added 372,000 jobs last month. The unemployment rate remains at a historically low 3.6%. Both numbers are stronger than expected. There are still almost 2 open jobs for every person who needs one. That's been true since the end of last year. But experts say it may not be the case for much longer.
With inflation, with interest rates, we are seeing obviously pressure on companies from a growth perspective. And I think as we move forward, they probably will be slowing their hiring needs.
Scott Blumsack with Monster.com told us he thinks we'll see less job hopping over the next few months as companies tighten their budgets and reduce hiring. We may also see more people return to work. About 7 million people left the labor force in March and April of 2020. Today, the number of people who aren't working is still much higher than it was before the pandemic.
A lot of the population had some level of financial cushion that they could sort of dip into. And we've seen those savings rates decline pretty dramatically, especially as inflation has increased. And so moving forward, it does appear likely that that is going to be a driver of getting people back off the sidelines and into the workforce.
Cloudiness around today. Very minimal breaks of sunshine throughout the early afternoon. As we head into the early and middle afternoon hours, scattered rain and storms will be jumping up across the area, popping up very widespread as we head into the evening hours too. Something to keep in mind is the locally heavier amounts of rain we can pick up in some of these stronger storms, especially for areas along I-10 and northward. So South Georgia, seeing those pockets of heavier rain possible later today could create some issues. That's something we'll be monitoring as the day progresses. But showers and storms should be wrapping up for the overnight hours. And then heading into Tuesday, we'll begin the day dry. But then in the afternoon, we'll get some showers and storms starting to bubble up across the area. Probably not as widespread as today, but could still see some heavier rain amounts with so much moisture around. This entire work week pretty much keeps the same pattern, daily storm chances every day.